Right, so it's an often used comedic refrain when talking about the Tories in relation to various issues that the first words that leave their lips is, who makes the money then? Because unless somebody is profiting from a particular policy, a move, some sort of deal, they don't take any notice of it really. Greed is their god. It's good to be greedy and all that right-wing capitalist gumph. But the one thing there is no escaping that requires an altruistic attitude to combat is climate change. Yet for somebody as wealthy as Rishi Sunak, where there is no profit in it for him either financially or politically amongst his own party, well, he couldn't care less. You can't eat your own money, Rishi. It's the ultimate false economy, and no matter how financially well off you are, morally, you're completely bankrupt. Last week, we saw Zac Goldsmith resign as Minister for the International Environment in an excoriating resignation letter to Sunak, which talked about assurances obtained from other countries at COP26 on international climate change and biodiversity recovery, funding programs to help poorer parts of the world preserve their natural assets, animal welfare progress, and more, all of which have been bit by bit abandoned under Sunak's unelected administration. The killer line from Goldsmith was near the end of his diatribe, though, 2 pages. He did waffle on a bit. But he'd ended up calling Sunak out directly. He said, Prime Minister, having been able to get so much done previously, I have struggled even to hold the line in recent months. The problem is not that the government is hostile to the environment. It is that you, our Prime Minister, are simply uninterested. That signal, or lack of it, has trickled down through Whitehall and caused a kind of paralysis. I will never understand how, with all the knowledge we now have about our fundamental reliance on the natural world and the speed with which we are destroying it, anyone can be uninterested. But even if this existential challenge leaves you personally unmoved, there is a world of people out there who care very much. Now, perhaps it's because I'm a green, that the thought of not giving a damn about the natural world and actually prompting a resignation over it, no less, I find horrifying. Though it amazes me Goldsmith, as a Tory, frankly does. Though he did go on to say it's a crisis for the party when voters care for the environment, and Sunak really should be listening to that. So his motivations, a little bit like that. However, it's very clear that Sunak either isn't listening or is so bored by the issue of saving the planet, he wants done with it by pulling funding. You see, it was a flagship Tory policy too, as part of a global effort to commit £11.6 billion towards a total $100 billion annual commitment to help developing countries deal with climate change. And now Sunak wants to drop it all on the basis that we cannot afford it. We cannot pay for this now, says a leaked government report, because it would now take up to 83% of what gets allocated to international aid in order to pay for it all by 2026. Why? Because the government didn't spend the money allocated to this since 2019, when this commitment was made. Of course, we're talking Boris Johnson at this point, him breaking a pledge, well, colour me surprised. Anyway, they've got their excuses in about this, though. This was all before COVID broke out, when we were spending 0.7% of GDP on international aid, they're saying. We've since had to cut it to 0.5%. So how are you getting on with recouping all that lost pandemic spending then to make up this shortfall of money that you've had to spend out? There was a lot of it lost, wasn't there? Have you repoed Michelle Moan's yacht yet? Have you found out where Dido Harding buried the test and trace billions yet? There's a big fat X on a map somewhere, I have no doubt whatsoever. Not all of this money, of course, is recoverable. All the extra health spending caused by spikes in infection, caused by the likes of opening up for Christmas, which was stupid, or opening schools back up too early, which was also intensely stupid, or Eat Out to Help Out, which was massively stupid, and which was entirely your fault, wasn't it, Rishi? We now know you never sought scientific advice over whether you should go ahead with this daft policy. You just decided the economy came before lives. And now you're echoing that again with the economy, putting it before the planet now, like the wealth-obsessed idiot that you are. Ukraine has got the blame too. We've given them pots of cash, so we can't help the rest of the planet now. Much of this funding was set aside, earmarked as part of pledges made at COP26 last year and at COP15 previously in 2019. And COP26, of course, was an event that Sunak wasn't originally going to bother attending, you might recall. But he ended up doing so because for some bizarre reason, Boris Johnson went, and he'd look bad if he didn't. And those same commitments we made on climate change financing were used to persuade other countries to increase their funding too. So this action makes us all look like absolute assholes on the international stage now, and all because Sunak is apparently too bored with the subject to care. Puts dumping shit in our rivers in a different perspective as well, doesn't it? The profit margins of water companies need to be maintained. The shareholders must get their dividends. So, oh well, no more chalk streams, no more fish, and no more bathing spots. But don't bother Sunak with facts like that, because he doesn't care. He's got his industrially heated swimming pool. He can act like a fish just fine on his own. He's all right. Those other issues are a problem for the poorest of the country, and he is just as much disdain, it seems, for other nations too. This cash is necessary to help developing countries prepare for climate change, to help deal with it themselves. We as a rich, developed nation, particularly as part of our role in the Industrial Revolution that pumped a lot of this toxicity out before the damage caused was fully understood, have a responsibility in spearheading that. And as a wealthy country, doubly so, because we've got the capacity to do it. We've got the ability to do it. But despite being so rich, Sunak is now telling us, no, we're too poor. We aren't poor at all. It's just the money is all in the wrong places. Tax the rich, because that's where all the wealth is. It's an insult when global economic stats show how wealthy a country we are. And when less well-off countries end up being seen to do more, as will inevitably happen, we'll be embarrassed by this sham of a government yet again. There are literally island states in danger of disappearing as sea levels rise due to climate change. Some 25 Commonwealth states are included amongst those who share our head of state with us. Now, Charles might be an unelected prat, but he's been outspoken on the climate change issue previously, and he'd do a lot worse than to write an embarrassing swipe at Sunak for being tantamount to a climate change denier. Balls to the papers really having a go at you over that. If you do, you'll have done something helpful for once. Other countries using such funding to help combat deforestation. The African nation of Gabon, for example, you don't hear much about Gabon, do you? It's 88% covered in rainforest. Such cash is helping to preserve that instead of leading to more of its loss through deforestation. Sadly, the critics of this move aren't surprised it's come, though. Financial mismanagement, as the Tories are responsible for, of course, yes, but Sunak has cut funding from other programmes. The issue's prompting Zac Goldsmith's resignation, so they aren't surprised this flagship election promise is now being dumped entirely, all despite, of course, Sunak having no mandate of his own to actually do it. We cannot afford more leaders like this, not just unelected ones, but ones denying these issues which matters to us all, no matter where we live or where we are from. And after you've liked, shared and subscribed to the channel, as I hope you will, I hope you've found the video informative, you can get more on Sunak's green hypocrisy on this video here, where although he's cutting funding left, right and centre, he'll happily raise your energy bill to help you pay for more of it. And I'll catch you on the next vid. Cheers, folks.